Rome seemed to own the world. Her empire stretched from Scotland to the Sahara. Her army controlled 3 continents. 50 million people lived under her laws. Rome's empire was the greatest political prize the world had ever seen. This is the story of those who would do anything to win it. It's a warm spring night in 82 BC, and Rome is struggling to control one of its generals. Lucius Cornelius Sulla has camped 50,000 soldiers just outside the city to intimidate his opponents in Rome. Sulla is a cunning politician and a brilliant general. He's returning from a successful 4-year campaign in the East and is used to getting his way. He meets with the Roman Senate and demands they give his soldiers land as a reward for their conquests. For the first time in Roman history, a general is bullying the government. The senators refuse. At issue is the very future of the Roman state. Can Rome's civilian government control the ambition of her generals? Or will brute force triumph over the rule of law? That night, Sulla posted his answer. Lists of his political enemies with cash rewards next to their names. Sulla had tried to persuade his opponents. Now he promised to kill them. It was a bloodbath. Thousands died.
Husbands were slaughtered in the embraces of their wives, sons in the arms of their mothers. And those who were killed in the passion of the moment were as nothing compared with those who were just butchered for the sake of their property. Plutarch.
Sulla's reign of terror only lasted 4 years, but a fatal precedent had been set. A general had returned from war and persuaded a Roman army to help him seize power in Rome. Yet 400 years earlier, Romans had dreamed of something very different. When Rome was nothing more than a village on the banks of the river Tiber, Romans made a revolutionary commitment that would change the course of history. After years of tyranny under Etruscan kings, they dreamed of a government based on restraint, trust, and the rule of law. In 509 BC, they created the Roman Republic, the world's first representative government. SPQR, Senatus Populus Quae Romanus. The Senate and the people of Rome was its motto. The Republic was a bold experiment in communal government. Wealthy and poor farmers agreed to share power. The rich served as Rome's leaders, the poor as her soldiers. In return, everyone had a say in how the government was run. Romans knew the key to the Republic's success was responsible leadership. And in Gaius Quintius Cincinnatus, they found a legendary role model. The Senate granted Cincinnatus, a Roman landowner, absolute power to defend Rome from an aggressive local tribe. He accepted the position and defeated the enemy. 14 days later, he voluntarily resigned and humbly went back to work on his farm. His sense of duty, sacrifice, and loyalty to the state embodied everything the new republic stood for. The Roman Republic has served as a model for Western democracies ever since. Everything from its public architecture to its political rituals is strangely familiar. Once a year, the whole city would turn out to vote for its leaders. Competition for the consulship, the most important public office, was intense.
The election of a consul in the Roman Republic is like the election of the American president. You call people friends who you would not normally call friends. You shake hands, you kiss babies. And what you're trying to do is to get a bandwagon going, to appear a winner. And very gradually, as in American presidential elections, people drop by the wayside. Something goes wrong with their campaign.
The remaining candidates then turn to their spin doctors.
If it can be managed at all, there should be scandalous talk of character, about the crimes, lusts, and briberies of your competitors. Quintus.
It was up to the senators to ensure that politics didn't get too frivolous. They were the guardians of Rome's traditions.
The Roman Senate and the American Senate are the two greatest senates of all time. Roman senators got no pay. They serve for the honor of serving their state as a senator. The Senate was intended to be made up of old men, not the swiftest of the swift or the strongest of the strong, but the wisest of the wise. Why were they wise? Why were they the wisest of the wise? Because they were old men. They had experience.
Under their watchful eye, the young republic fostered a sense of civic pride, the foundation of Rome's empire. Her volunteer army carried Roman power to unimaginable places. By the 2nd century BC, Rome was mistress of the Mediterranean. Yet beneath the surface of Rome's success lurked serious contradictions. Women had few rights, and it was never one man, one vote. Elections were always rigged in favor of the wealthy. Political equality was never a Roman ideal. They lived in a world of extremes. While the rich redefined the meaning of decadence, 95% of the people struggled below the poverty line. This social imbalance would fuel the most disruptive tradition in Republican Rome: patronage. Every morning at dawn, the poor gathered in the courtyards of the rich. These wealthy patrons saw to the needs of their clients. Some needed work, others legal advice. In return, clients promised patrons their vote at election time. But Rome's great patrons were also Rome's great politicians, and obligations to their clients often clouded their duty to the state. Loyalty was divided, and the ideals of the Republic compromised. The conflict between patronage and politics was set to explode. A small group of wealthy families ruled Rome. Notoriously conservative, they protected their own interests and quietly resisted reform, until one of their own broke the code of silence. Tiberius Gracchus was born to privilege. Grandson of Scipio Africanus, conqueror of Hannibal, and son of Cornelia, an intelligent, ambitious woman who poured her ideals into her two sons, Tiberius and Gaius. She told him she was tired of being called the daughter of her father, Scipio. She wanted to be known as the mother of her sons. In 143 BC, the young Tiberius left Rome to join the army in Spain. It was a very disturbing journey.
While Tiberius was traveling through Italy, he saw for himself how the country had been deserted by its native inhabitants, and how those who tilled the soil or tended the flocks were barbarian slaves introduced from abroad. But it was above all the people themselves who did most to arouse Tiberius's energy and ambitions, calling upon him to recover the public land for the poor. Plutarch.
The ambitious aristocrat had found his cause. In the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC, the Roman Empire had more than doubled in size. The conquering soldiers were still volunteers, poor Roman citizens who owned small farms. When the Roman Empire was small, this citizens' militia had worked well. Men served for only part of each year, coming home regularly to work their farms. But getting home to harvest became impossible as the empire grew and armies were conquering faraway lands in Africa or Asia or Northern Europe.
If you're serving abroad for years and years in a long process of imperial conquest, the result is that when you put down your sword at the end of the campaign, there is no ploughshare left, because your brother nicked it ages ago, and it wasn't just your brother, it's the big landlord next door who's extended his estate. So that you do have very large numbers of people who don't have land to return to.
Their new estates netted the Roman aristocracy obscene profits, which they used to buy foreign slaves to work the land. So when veterans returned from war, they'd lost their land to the wealthy and their jobs to slaves. Tiberius Gracchus promised to change all that.
The wild beasts that roam over Italy have their dens and holes to lurk in. But the men who fight and die for our country enjoy the common air and light and nothing else. It is their lot to wander with their children, houseless and homeless over the face of the earth. The truth is that our soldiers fight and die to protect the wealth and luxury of others. They are called the masters of the world, but they don't possess a single clod of earth which is truly their own. Gracchus.
Gracchus proposed something radical. The government should divide public land among Rome's homeless. The senators were horrified. His plan threatened their own huge estates and also their political livelihood. If passed, it would make Tiberius Gracchus the patron of Rome's massive underclass. He'd be the most powerful man in Rome.
The story of Tiberius Gracchus is the Roman aristocrat who cheats. He does the thing that they've all got a little convention among themselves. There's some things you do, there's some things you don't do. And you don't bust the system by going straight to the people and offering them things. You can see it as breaking a system of patronage.
The Roman elite panicked. A group of senators confronted Gracchus as he was speaking to his supporters. In a fit of rage, they beat him to death with the chairs they were sitting on. Rome's boldest reformer was then dumped into the river Tiber. Yet Gracchus had revolutionized Roman politics. By championing the needs of the poor, Gracchus had shown how an ambitious aristocrat could outmaneuver his conservative peers. But people power would do more than divide Rome's leaders. Ultimately, it would threaten the Republic.